Okay, so I think it's good we start with Surah Al-Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, maliki yawmiddin, iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'een, ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim, sirata alladhina an'amta alayhim, ghayr al-maghdubi alayhim wa lad-dallin. Sadaqallahu al-aliyyul al-azim. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعن الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين آمين يا رب العالمين. السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك. عليكم منا جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقينا وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر أحد منا لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين. Peace be upon you, O Abu Abdullah, and upon the souls who have gathered in your courtyard. Upon you from us all is the peace of God forever, for as long as we remain and as long as the night and day endure. And may God never make this our last pledge to visit you. Peace be upon Husayn, and upon Ali the son of Husayn, and upon the children of Husayn, and upon the companions of Husayn. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So we've had 4 nights of foundation. On the first night, we recovered a word. Martyr does not mean victim. Rather, it means witness. We returned to Abel, or Habil, peace and blessings be upon him, and read his 2 sentences as given to us in the Quran. I will not stretch out my hand to kill you. I fear God, the Lord of all creation. The first refusal and the first testimony. On the second night, we went deeper than Abel, to the covenant before the body, the moment every soul was asked, again from the Quran, am I not your Lord? And all the souls answered, yes, we bear witness. We trace that covenant through the prophets, Noah, Abraham, John the Baptist, Zechariah, and Jesus, son of Mary, peace and blessings be upon them all, until it reached Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon his family, and his family and his righteous companions, and his grandson on a plain in Iraq. On the third night, Shaheed Ayatollah Mutahari, may God rest his pure soul, gave us the theology. 5 kinds of death, only one of which is not death at all. We placed Imam Husayn, peace and blessings be upon him, in the 5th category, the conscious, knowing, sacred giving of life. And we said, between the 3rd and the 5th category, between the victim and the witness, is everything. On the 4th night, we heard Imam Husayn's own voice in Mina, diagnosing the silence of the scholars and the elites. 3 reasons men go quiet: fear, comfort, and the slow narrowing of moral vision. And the cure? Shahada of the tongue is cheap. Shahada of the life is the only kind that matters. Tonight, we step outside the family of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon them, and we listen with care to a witness in another tongue. We trace the same word through another language, and we visit men and women who, in another tradition, in another century, in another empire, performed acts of testimony and witness that the Greek and the Latin and the Arabic all describe with the same root. They bore witness with their lives. And we ask the question this night that we really must answer. Can we honor what is true in another tradition without diminishing what is true in our own? That is the diagnostic question. The faith we belong to neither flattens every tradition into the same shape, nor fortifies one against the other in mutual contempt. It distinguishes. Tabyeen, clarification, the work that the man we're still warning gave his entire life to, and it honors. Both of these at once. There is a thread to last night that I wish to pick up. Imam Husayn, peace and blessings be upon him, in the khutbah of Mina, did not begin his diagnosis with a verse about Muslims. He began with a verse about the Christians and the Jews from Surah Al-Ma'idah, where God describes those of the children of Israel cursed by the tongues of David and Jesus the son of Mary, peace be upon them both, for failing to forbid the wrong they saw being done. The word he used to indict their silence, the silence of the scholars of his own community, was a word the Quran had already used about the silence of the scholars in an earlier tradition. The chain we have been building tonight was already in the mouth of Imam Husayn at Mina. That's our model. We don't soften the differences. We don't collapse one tradition into another. But we do not refuse to hear them either. Please give me a loud salawat and we move on to how the Quran honors Jesus, the Quranic foundation.
اللهم صل على
اللهم
محمد
محمد
وآل
وآل
محمد
محمد وجل بركاته.
So the Quran opens our path tonight with a verse from Surah Al-Ma'idah. It's the chapter of the table spread, 5th chapter of the Quran, and the verses are verses 75 to 77, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "The Messiah, the son of Mary, was no more than a messenger. Other messengers passed away before him. His mother was truthful. They both used to eat food. Look how we make clear the signs to them, and then look how they are turned away. Say, do you worship besides God what has no power to harm you or to benefit you? And God is the all-hearing, the all-knowing. Say, O people of the book, do not exceed the bounds of your religion beyond the truth, and do not follow the desires of a people who went astray before, and led many astray, and themselves strayed from the even path." Reflect on what the Quran does in this verse. It honors the messenger, it refuses the excess, and this is the model that we have for tonight. It honors Jesus and his mother, Saint Mary, peace and blessings be upon them both, in the very highest terms. It calls Jesus a messenger in the chain of all of the messengers. And it calls Saint Mary a Siddiqa, the truthful one, a station the Quran reserves for souls of the highest rank. It tells us they ate food, a single devastating sentence, meaning that they were human beings. The God who made them was not made. The human beings that he made through their flesh ate and drank and walked the earth as our brothers and sisters walk it. And in the same chapter, the very next verse refuses what would later be built around them. Do you worship besides God what has no power to harm you nor to benefit you? O people of the book, do not exceed the bounds in your religion beyond the truth. The same God who honored Jesus refuses to allow him to be worshipped. The same God who called Saint Mary truthful refuses to allow her to be raised to a station she herself did not claim. This is the model of the whole sermon this evening. Honor what God has honored and refuse what he is not. And the Quran itself teaches us how to speak to the Christian witness, or speak of the Christian witness, how to honor the messenger and refuse the doctrine, in the same paragraph without any contradiction. And there's a verse in Surah Al Imran, the chapter of the family of Imran, the 3rd chapter of the Quran, verse number 52. And this verse bears on tonight before we move forward. The disciples of Jesus, when he asked them who would help him in the cause of God, said, and in Quran Allah says, the disciples said, we are the helpers of God. We have believed in God. Bear witness that we are submitters. The verb over here that's used in the Arabic is ashhad, bear witness. The same root that has held this series together for the 4 previous nights. The disciples of Jesus in the Quran's own grammar ask to be witnessed. They ask to be entered into the chain. And the Quran grants them the station. Think about this. Because it tells us in advance that the men and women that we will name tonight were standing in a station the Quran itself had already opened for them. They bore witness. The Quran did not have to be persuaded to call them witnesses. It had already used the word. So now let's look at the word in 2 languages, Martyrs and Shahid. And let's begin with the word itself. In Arabic, the root is sha, ha, and da. And this gives us Shahada, to witness, Shahada, testimony, and the declaration of faith. Shahid, witness, and martyr. The same root, the same breath. To witness and to die for the truth are not two separate things in our language. They are one word, but seen from two different languages. In Greek, the language of the early Christian Mediterranean, the same work is done by another word, martis. It means witness. The trajectory is exact. Martis, the witness who testifies in court, became martyr, the witness who testifies with their life. The same trajectory the Arabic root traveled. The same trajectory the Latin testis and testimonium traveled in the Roman language of the same age. This is not a parallel that has to be defended. It is a fact of grammar and history. Three of the great Mediterranean languages of late antiquity, Arabic, Greek, and Latin, all reach the same destination, the one who tells the truth in court when the cost is everything. And they reached it independently. The word followed the act. The modern comparative scholar David Cook of Rice University opens his comparative study of Islamic martyrdom, which is something I would recommend people read, it's quite interesting, with the observation that the same shape repeats across every tradition that has ever met God. He writes, martyrdom means witness. Witness is the most powerful form of advertisement because it communicates personal credibility and experience to an audience. Therefore, it is not surprising that the world's missionary religions have developed the art of the promotional martyrdom into a process that is identifiable and fairly constant through different faiths. The references, like always, are in the write-up. The shape is constant. The languages differ, but the act does not. But our own Hausa has gone deeper than the academic argument, and we should hear from our own house before we let any Western voice, however careful, have the last word. Allama Sayyid Muhammad Tabatabai, may God rest his pure soul, in his monumental work Tafsir al-Mizan, in his commentary on the verse that we read on night 1. This is the verse from Surah Al-Hadid, the chapter of Ayin, 57th chapter of the Quran, verse 19, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and those who believed in God and his messengers, they are the truthful and the witnesses in the sight of their Lord. They shall have their reward and their light. Preserves two traditions. Allama preserves two traditions that reach into the heart of this question. The first comes from Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, his family and righteous companions, narrated by Al-Barra ibn Azib. And that tradition says, the faithful of my nation are witnesses. And you can find the references in the write-up. The faithful of my nation are witnesses. And of course, the word he uses is Shahada. Mu'minun ummati Shahada. He does not say some of them. He uses the plural, Shuhada, and he applies it without any qualification to every soul who has believed. And the second tradition is more direct still, and it's preserved in one of the oldest Imami commentaries that we have on the Quran, titled Tafsir al-Ayyashi. And the narrator is a companion or an associate of Imam al-Sadiq called Manhal al-Qassab. And he came to Imam al-Sadiq one time with a very particular request. The references, of course, are in the write-up. He said, the hadith reads, I said to Abu Abdullah, meaning Imam al-Sadiq, peace and blessings be upon him, pray to God to grant me martyrdom, Shahada. And Imam Sadiq, he replied, the faithful one is already a witness, already a shaheed. And he recited the verse that we've just quoted. Think about this exchange. Sit with it for a moment. The man asks for martyrdom for the death of the witness on the field. And the Imam, peace and blessings be upon him, does not refuse the prayer. He does something far more precise. He corrects the grammar. He says, the faithful one is already a witness. The station you are praying for is the station that you're already in. The witness in the courtroom and the martyr in the battlefield are the same word, and you've already said the word. This is our own tradition's answer to the linguistic question, and it's much older than David Cook. The witness and the martyr were never two stations. They were one station seen from two ends of a single life. The Imam knew it before any Greek-speaking Christian or any Arabic-speaking Muslim ever sat down to compare notes on their respective vocabularies. The Greek Martyrs and the Arabic Shaheed are reaching for the same act because the act itself is a singular act. The Imam said so plainly. We say what he said. And tonight we honor three of the early ones, three figures who carried the word Martyrs into the Roman Empire and would not surrender it back. Please give me a salawat and we move on to the first one, Polycarp at the stake in Smyrna, around 155 of the Common Era.
اللهم صل على محمد
وآل
وآل
محمد
محمد
وجيل فرجه.
So Polycarp was an old man. Of course, his name is Polycarp. He was the bishop of Smyrna, a Greek city on the western coast of what we now call Turkey or Turkiye, which was at that time a thriving Roman provincial capital. He is by tradition the last living disciple of John the Apostle. And so he carries in his memory the voice of a man who carried the voice of Jesus. He is in his 87th year. In the year 155 of the Christian calendar or the Common Era, about 520 odd years before Karbala, the Roman proconsul of Asia, a man named Statius Quadratus, demanded that Polycarp swear by the genius of Caesar that he offer a pinch of incense to the imperial cult and curse Jesus. The Roman charge is atheistos, meaning atheism, in the sense of refusing to worship the gods of the state. And of course, the charge is also treason. To refuse the incense is to refuse the empire. When the soldiers came for Polycarp, he does what most of the men in his room would not do. He greets them. He has a meal prepared for them. He asks for an hour of prayer, and the hour stretches to 2. And when he comes out, he is calm. He is brought into the arena, and the proconsul offers him a way out. The proconsul says to him, "Swear by the fortune of Caesar, denounce Christ, and you will go free." Polycarp's reply has been preserved in the Martyrdom of Polycarp, one of the earliest surviving Christian texts after the New Testament. Polycarp said, 86 years I have served him, and he has done me no wrong. How can I blaspheme my king who saved me? Reflect on the architecture of this beautiful refusal. There's no rage in it. 86 years, he counts them. He has done me no wrong. He gives the verdict on his Lord, not from theology, but from his own experience. He then says, how can I blaspheme my king who saved me? The question is rhetorical only because it answers itself. He cannot, and he will not. Not because he is brave, he may well have been afraid, but because his conscience has already been formed over 86 years by a Lord who has done him no wrong. He is burnt at the stake, and a soldier finishes him with a dagger. A man who has served his Lord for 86 years does not blaspheme him to satisfy a Roman magistrate. The pastoral witness, the elder, the bishop, the one whose life has been one long act of service. Listen for what Polycarp's words share with the words of Abel that we recovered on the very first night. I will not stretch out my hand to kill you, I fear God. And these words of Abel, of course, are in the Quran. And Abel continues, or rather Polycarp then says, and he has done me no wrong, how can I blaspheme my king? The grammar is the same, I will not, I fear, I cannot, he has not. The witness states where they stand and why. The empire, Cain in one age, Caesar in another, does the rest. And now we look at Perpetua and Justin, two forms in brief. Two more witnesses from the same period. In a briefer compass, because the form they each anchor is recognizable in our own tradition without elaborate retelling. Firstly, you have Perpetua of Carthage, killed in the arena at the age of 22 in 203 years of the Common Era, under the procurator Hilarinus. A young noblewoman, recently converted, the mother of an infant. Her father came to her cell repeatedly and pleaded with her to recant. She refused. And the procutor asked her to confirm her faith. And she answered in Latin, Christina sum. I am Christian. 2 words. 3 words, 4 words in English, but 2 words in Latin. I am a Christian. She was not declaring a doctrine. She was declaring an identity the empire could not rename. The familial witness, the young woman, the mother, the one whose fidelity broke the closest of hearts. The lineage in our own tradition runs through said Zainab and the women of Karbala, peace and blessings be upon them. We do not force the parallel, but we do not pretend not to see it. Justin Martyr, killed in Rome around 165 of the Common Era, under the urban prefect Junius Rusticus, a Greek-speaking philosopher who came to Christianity through reasoning and defended it in the writings addressed to the emperor himself. When the prefect commanded him at trial, obey the gods and submit to the emperor, Justin answered, and of course the references for all of these are in the write-up. Justin answered, no one of sound mind moves from truth to error. The movement is always from error to truth. The intellectual witness, the man who used reason to argue the case for the truth, then sealed the argument with his head when the empire demanded he reverse it. His station in our own tradition is occupied by the likes of Shaykh Mutahari, Shahid Beheshti, Dr. Ali Shariati, may God rest their pure souls, the scholar witnesses across time of every century. So what do the 3 tell us? 3 figures, 3 forms, the pastoral witness, the familial witness, and the intellectual witness. The bishop, the young mother, and the philosopher. The same 3 forms our own tradition has produced in every generation since. There is a Greek word in the Christian theological vocabulary of that age that maps precisely onto our own word of sabr. And the word is hypomone, steadfast endurance under suffering. Sabr and hypermone are not the same word. They are 2 languages reaching for the same thing. The witness's gift of staying when the staying costs everything. What do these 3 teach us tonight? First, the chain of witness is not Muslim alone. It is human. The Lord we worship is not a pariacal Lord. The witness he honors is not the witness of one tribe or of one tongue. Second, the forms of witness are the forms our own tradition has always produced. They are not Christian forms, they are witness forms. Third, and this is the harder lesson, to honor these witnesses is not to diminish our own. The candle of society, in Shaykh Mutahari's metaphor, has been lit in many different ways and in many different places. To say so is not weakness. It is Tabyeen, it is clarification. And the man who taught us Tabyeen, Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei, may God rest his pure soul, in this, the first Muharram since his own martyrdom, used to visit Christian families on the anniversary of the birth of Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, and may God hasten his return. He was not pretending Christianity was Islam. He was honoring the witness wherever the witness was found. And we will return to him. But first, we have to come to our own century. Please give me a salawat and we move to the next point, which is the cost that did not stop.
اللهم صل على محمد
اللهم صل
وآل
على
محمد
محمد
وعجل.
The early martyrs sealed Christianity into the Roman Empire. By the time of Constantine in the 4th century, the empire that had killed Polycarp was Christian. And we could be forgiven for thinking the cost had ended there. It did not. The 20th and 21st centuries have produced their own Christian witnesses. The names are different, the empires are different. The shape of the test is the same. We'll look at 3 of them. You've got Jagerstatter in Brandenburg, August 1943. An Austrian peasant farmer from the village of St. Radegund in Upper Austria. A devout Catholic, husband to a wife named Franziska. Father of 3 young daughters. The youngest at that time was still a toddler. By any worldly measure, the man with the greatest reasons to comply. When the Wehrmacht conscription notice arrived in 1943, the conscription from the Nazi party to join the war effort, he refused. He refused to take the loyalty oath to Adolf Hitler. He refused to fight in a war he had decided by his Catholic conscience was unjust. His parish priest urged him to comply. His bishop urged him to comply. His lawyer pleaded with him for the sake of his daughters. His neighbors in St. Radegund, his town, many of whose own sons were already in uniform, could not understand him. He held to the refusal. At his trial in Berlin on the 6th of July 1943, when the military court of the Reich asked him why he would not serve, he answered in language a man with no theology degree and did not need a theology degree in order to find. He said, and this is again referenced in the write-up, he said, "It was impossible for me to be a Catholic and at the same time a National Socialist. There are matters in which one is obliged to obey God more than the man. The commandment, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself, forbade me to engage in armed service." From the cell at the Brandenburg Gordon prison, in the weeks before his execution, he wrote prison letters and a small set of 10 questions. You can get this online. One of them carries the same logic our Imam Husayn, peace and blessings be upon him, carried in Mina. He says, and the references are all in the write-up, is it not more Christian to offer oneself as a victim right away, rather than first have to murder others who certainly have a right to live and want to live, just to prolong one's own life a little while? The conscience of a peasant farmer with 3 small children in language no library was required to write or to read. This is the question every soldier in every army has been asked by his own conscience in every century. Most have refused to hear it. Jagerstatter heard it and he answered it. He was beheaded by guillotine on the 9th of August 1943 at the age of 36. And his final words to the prison chaplain were as follows. He said, "I am completely bound in inner union with the Lord." He was beatified by the Catholic Church in 2007, 58 years late, after the Austrian Catholic establishment had urged him to comply, with the order of the Nazi regime, had spent 2 generations being uncomfortable with the man who witnessed it had failed to recognize in that moment. The theology is not ours, but the architecture of the witness is unmistakable. The peasant who refused to be in the wrong army, the European Christian echo in the 20th century of the captain we will hear of in tonight's Maqtal. And then you have 21 on a Beach, Libya, February 2015. A witness in our own lifetime. The lifetime of every adult in this room. Just over 11 years ago. In February 2015, 20 Coptic Christians from Upper Egypt, working as agricultural laborers in Libya, were captured by an offshoot of Daesh, or ISIS. With them was a Ghanaian man named Matthew Ayariga. They were marched to a beach site near Sirte in Libya, dressed in orange jumpsuits, and beheaded on camera as a propaganda video. The video shows their lips moving in prayer. Eyewitness accounts say they were saying the name of Christ or of God. Matthew Ayariga was asked if he was a Christian. He was given a chance to recant, and he is reported to have said, "Their God is my God." And he too was killed with the others. The Coptic Orthodox Church canonized them as martyrs within weeks. I don't need to describe the moments further. The handling of this story belongs to silence and to the discipline of refusing to do for the propagandists what they want us to do. The working class witnesses, the laborers, the men with no theology degrees, no books, no platform, the men who had nothing to recommend them but their fidelity in the last 20 seconds of their lives. They too are part of the same chain. And let it not be said that we looked away. Within 48 hours of the video's release, on the 28th of Bahman, 1393 of the solar calendar, which corresponds to the 17th of February 2015, the Society of Seminary Teachers of Qom, what we call Jam al-Mudarrisin, the highest body, the senior body of the principal Shia seminary in the world, issued a formal condemnation. And they said, you can find the references in the write-up and the actual full text in Farsi. But the Hausa said, in the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate, the Society of Seminary Teachers of the Hausa of Qom condemns the recent action of the terrorist group Daesh in the beheading of a group of Egyptian Christian citizens in Libya, and emphasizes that the only path of struggle against the terrorists of Daesh is the unity of the Islamic world. The public opinion of the Islamic world will never forget that the crimes of Daesh took shape and spread because of the support of the West and a number of reactionary rulers in the region. The killing of Egyptian Christian citizens. That's how Qom named them. Not Egyptian victims, not some Christians somewhere else, but by their nationality and by their faith. The senior seminary body of the Shia would honor those 21 Coptic men by name and by tradition, 2 days after the world had filed the video into the news cycle, gotten bored and moved on. The comfortable Western media looked away when the same act was performed at a contemporary distance. The Hausa of Qom did not look away, and we in this room follow what they in Qom already said. And next you have Óscar Romero at the altar, March 1980, the third figure. Óscar Romero, the Archbishop of San Salvador in El Salvador, a small Central American country in the 1970s and 1980s that was ruled by a US-backed military junta engaged in a civil war against its own peasant population. Death squads were operating across the countryside, killing priests, cachets, peasant leaders, anyone who organized the poor. Romero in 1977 was politically cautious, chosen as Archbishop because the establishment expected him to remain quiet. Then, in March 1977, his close friend, Father Rutilo Grande, was assassinated by a death squad while driving to celebrate Mass with peasants. Romero went to see the body, and he was changed. And that's the word. From that point until his own death 3 years later, he spoke against the regime weekly, broadcast across El Salvador on the Catholic radio. He named the disappeared. He read the lists of the dead. He told the soldiers week in and week out that they did not have to obey the orders to kill peasants. The homily he delivered on the Sunday before his death, which was he delivered on the 23rd of March 1980, ended with a direct address to the soldiers. He said, and you can again find the references in the write-up, "Brothers, you are from our own people. No soldier is obliged to obey an order against the law of God. In the name of God, then, I beseech you, I beg you, I command you in the name of God, stop the repression." The next day, on the 24th of March 1980, he was celebrating Mass at the chapel of a small hospital in San Salvador. As he raised the chalice to consecrate the wine, a single rifle shot from a death squad gunman parked outside struck him through the heart. He fell at the altar mid-prayer. The bishop killed by empire, the witness who used his pulpit and was killed for it mid-sentence. Now let's have a look and see what these three add to the first three. The cost, of course, has not stopped. It has only changed shape. From the lions of the arena to the prison cell, from the Roman magistrate to the death squad, from the proconsul stake to the propagandist's knife. The empire that demands the incense has many, many faces. It is a permanent fixture of the human story until Jesus and our beloved Imam al-Hujjah, may our souls be their ransom and may God hasten their return, return to settle the account. We name these names not to flatter Christians, but because the truth, even partial truth, must be honored wherever it appears. We refuse to honor it is its own kind of silence, of the very kind Imam Husayn diagnosed at Mina. Imam Husayn did not stay quiet about the witness of David and Jesus, peace and blessings be upon them. He cited them. He used their witness. He honored what God had honored. We do the same. But before we turn to the doctrinal heart of the night, there is a thread we picked up a couple of nights ago. And the empire that killed the 21 on the beach was broken in this world, in part, by a man whose stage on this road was the stage Christian theology has always called love. Please give me a salawat and we move on to the next point, which is a stage on the road, ishq.
اللهم صل على
محمد
آل محمد
محمد.
So the men who killed the 21 on the beach are dust. The empire of Daesh that they served was broken within 3 years of that beach. And it was broken in this world in part, in a large part, by the hand of a man we have already met in this series. On night 3, when Shaykh Mutahari, may God rest his pure soul, gave us the 5 kinds of death, we met Hajj Qasem Soleimani, may God rest his pure soul, at the beginning of his road. We called that stage by the name the Persian mystical tradition gave it, Talab, the quest. The boy from a village in Kerman, whose father worked with water and as a farmer, and not with books. The question that would not stop asking itself, the candle being formed before anyone knew it was a candle. Tonight we meet him at the next stage of the same road. The Persian mystical tradition names the next stage as ishq, love. Not love as a feeling, love as a station. The station in which the soul stops being a seeker and becomes a lover. There's a book published by Astana Khod-Zarazabi, the publishing house of the Shrine of Imam al-Rida, peace and blessings be upon him, which has gathered the testimonies of those who walked beside Hajj Qasem in his lifetime and arranged them across 4 stages of the classical Persian mystical road: Talab, Ishq, Ma'rifat, and finally Shahadat. The book is called Our Fortunate Friend, Rafiq Khoshbakht Ma. We will walk this road with Hajj Qasem across the rest of the series. Ma'rifat, God willing, on night 7, and Shahadat on night 9. Tonight we're at Ishq. And the book opens its 2nd chapter with a sentence that any Christian saint of the early centuries could well have written. It says, and the reference again is in the write-up. The book says, he knew well that the condition of love is its expression. He would express his love for his companions repeatedly. What is a lover without the expression of his love? Of his dearest brother in the field, Husayn, the son of Hamadani, may God rest his pure soul, who fell defending the shrine of Sayyid Zainab, he said, my breath is bound to your breath. This is the stage of ishq, love that must be expressed. And the loop closes here with what we have been saying tonight. Hajj Qasem's title in the years before his martyrdom, the title our community used about him, was different from his official rank. He was known as the commander of the protection of the pilgrims of Arba'in. The procession of millions of pilgrims who walk every year from Najaf to Karbala was for him the work of his love. He guarded the road to Karbala, and the army that came to hunt the pilgrims of Imam al-Husayn on that road was the same army that beheaded the 21 on a beach in Libya. The book records the story told by an Iraqi tribal leader. Daesh fighters had moved to take Iranian pilgrims hostage on the road to Karbala. Hajj Qasem was in a meeting when the message reached him. He left in the same suit he was wearing. There was no time to change. He took 20 of his elite men and intercepted Daesh in the desert. The engagement was brief, the outcome decisive. And Hajj Qasem, still in his civilian clothing, turned to the captured fighter and he said, and the reference is in the write-up, as you can see, my clothes are not for war. Woe to you if my leader, Sayyid Ali, ordered me to wear my military uniform. The danger to you is not what I am wearing, Hajj Qasem is saying. The danger is what my leader can ask me to wear at any moment. This is wilaya in clothing. The uniform of a soldier of God is whatever the Imam of the time tells him to put on. A few months earlier, in September 2017, the 40th day commemoration of one of the Mudafa'an Haram, the defenders of the holy shrines, and we will come to him in a later session, Hajj Qasem made a vow. In less than 3 months, the end of Daesh and the Daesh governance on earth will be announced. Within 3 months, by December of that same year, the territorial caliphate, so-called, of Daesh had collapsed. The vow had been kept. This is ishq, love that does not stay in the heart, love that expresses itself in the protection of pilgrims, in the road to Karbala kept open, in the breaking of the empire that thought it could kill 21 Coptic Christians on a beach in Libya without any reckoning. The reckoning came. The lover whose breath was bound to Imam Husayn's breath could not let the lovers of Imam al-Husayn, be they Muslim or Christian, be hunted on the road to go to him. We're going to meet him again at Ma'rifah on night 7 and at Shahada in night 9. I'm deliberately not translating these terms because they'll become clear on the relevant nights. Tonight is the stage of love. And love is the only force that has ever broken an empire from inside the suit you happen to be wearing when the call comes. Please give me a salawat. We move to what we share and where the roads part.
اللهم
نعم
صل على
صل على
محمد
محمد
وآل
محمد
محمد
وجه الفرج.
So we've spent the first half of this night naming what we share. Let us state it briefly so that when we turn to where we part, the audience knows what is being preserved. We share the linguistic root. Martyrs and Shaheed are the same word in 2 languages. We share the conviction that bearing witness is costly. Every true witness in every tradition has paid for it. We share the refusal to worship power. Every true witness refuses the alternative offered by the throne. And we share, deepest, the dignity of every soul, rooted in the universal covenant of, am I not your Lord? Yes, we bear witness. These are the bones of the witness. We do not lose them when we turn to where the roads part. So first we look at the cross as a vicarious salvation. Christian theology in its dominant form holds that Christ's death on the cross atones for the sins of humanity. That one death pays the price of many. The Quran does not teach this. The verse that closes the door on it appears 5 times across the Quran. No bearer of burdens shall bear the burden of another. This version is from Surah Al-An'am, the chapter of the cattle, 6th chapter of the Quran, it's verse number 164. But there are 5 repetitions for a doctrine that our Lord wants us to understand at 5 different angles. Every soul stands before God on its own account. There is no death that in being undergone by one settles the ledger of many. This means, and this is very important, this means that our martyrs do not atone for us. Rather, they bear witness to us. Their light illuminates our path. It does not substitute for our journey. When we stand at the grave of Imam al-Husayn, peace and blessings be upon him, we are not in the presence of a man who has paid our debt. We are in the presence of a man who has shown us the road and who waits to see whether we will walk it ourselves. In the dominant Christian frame, the supreme martyr saves the believer through his death. In the Islamic frame, the supreme witness, Imam al-Husayn, calls the believer to become a witness in turn. The candle does not relieve us of the duty to burn. It shows us how to burn. The flame is contiguous. It is not transferable. And now we look at the inherited guilt and the soundness of the fitrah. The second divergence is the doctrine of original sin, that we are born under the burden of Adam's fall, and that the cross is the answer to that inheritance. The Quran does not teach this. The covenant we covered on night 2, the covenant from Surah Al-A'raf, where God says, am I not your Lord, implies the exact opposite. Every soul testifies for itself before any guilt and before any inheritance. The fitrah, the original disposition of the soul, is sound. In Quran, Surah Al-Rum, the chapter of the Romans, 30th chapter of the Quran, verse number 30, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, set your face toward the religion in natural devotion. The nature made by God in which He has made mankind, there is no altering of God's creation. The nature God placed in us is not corrupt. It has not fallen. It is not in need of an inherited ransom. The Quran's account of Adam, peace and blessings be upon him, honors him as a prophet. And our tradition has a precise term for what happened in the garden. That term is tarka awla, the abandoning of the better. The command to not approach the tree was advisory, not legislative. Like a doctor's counsel about what will harm you, not a law that carries a legal penalty. Adam chose a permissible act when a higher, more preferable one was available. What he experienced afterward was a natural consequence of that choice, not a punishment for a sin. There was no fall in the Christian sense. There is no inherited debt that we must pay. Sin is what we do. It is not what we are. These two divergences are not small matters of vocabulary. They are the architecture of the difference. The Quran honors Jesus and Saint Mary, peace and blessings be upon them both, in the very highest of terms, a great prophet of God and a Siddiqa, the truthful one. And in the very same book, it refuses two doctrines that grew up around them in the centuries that followed them. We hold both halves at once, what we call honor without conflation. And we can now speak of the takeaway of tonight in its full form. We honor the Christian witnesses as fellow travelers in a partial truth. We recognize the witness of Imam al-Husayn as the completion of what they glimpsed. The candle they lit in their cells, in their arenas, in their cathedrals, was a real candle. It was lit by the same oil. We do not and we will not say otherwise. But the lamp that holds the candle in its complete form is the one Imam al-Husayn raised at Karbala. It is the lamp of Tawhid without partner, of a God who needs no atoning death because he forgives directly when his servant turns to him, of a covenant that runs from each soul straight to its Lord, without any inherited debt, without intermediary blood. To honor the Christian witnesses without naming this distinction is to flatter them in a way that betrays both of us. Tabyeen, clarification, refuses both betrayals. It honors every witness fully, and it does not conflate any of them with any other. This is what Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei, may God rest his pure soul, gave his life to teach us, and what the first Muharram since his martyrdom puts on us as an obligation to carry forward. The differences between traditions are not embarrassments, they are clarifications. Romero would not have wanted us to flatter him. Polycarp would not have wanted us to flatter him. To honor them is to receive their witness as they offered it. Please give me a salawat and we move to the next point, which is Islam is a complement to real Christianity. Martyr Imam Khamenei's voice.
اللهم صل على محمد
محمد
وآل محمد.
The corrected theology produces the lived practice. Now we hear the voice of the man who lived it. On the 12th of the solar Hijri month of Day in the year 1373, which corresponds to around 2nd of January 1995, the martyr Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei, may God rest his pure soul, received a delegation of senior religious figures from the Assyrian churches of Iran in his office, a few days after Christmas. The leader of the Islamic revolution opened with these words, and the references are all in the write-up. Imam Khamenei said, "We congratulate the religious authorities, the Armenians of Iran, the Christians of the world, and also the Muslims, on the birth of Jesus the Messiah, peace and blessings be upon him. From the perspective of Islam, Jesus the Messiah, peace and blessings be upon him, is a great prophet of God, accepted and respected by the Muslims." In a separate message addressing the world's Muslims and Christians on the meaning of Christmas, Imam Khamenei said, and again the references are in the write-up, "Today humanity is in need of these teachings more than ever before. And Islam, which is a complement to real Christianity, has put calling humanity to piety and moral perfection high on its priority list. Islam is a complement to real Christianity. Think about that phrase carefully. He does not say Islam contradicts Christianity. He does not say it displaces Christianity. He says it completes it. And he qualifies the noun with real Christianity. Not the doctrines built around the Prophet over the centuries. The Christianity Jesus actually taught. The call to piety, the refusal to worship power, the readiness to bear witness with one's life. That Christianity finds its completion in Islam. Honor without conflation in 5 words. A complement to real Christianity. The witnesses that we have named tonight were standing in real Christianity in the part our Imam said our Islam completes. They were not strangers to the path that runs from Abel to Imam al-Husayn. They were on a section of it. Now let's have a look at what happened at the St. Sarkis Cathedral in Tehran, where the caravan carried a Christian brother. But before that, please give me a loud salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So the doctrine that produces the practice. The practice that lives the doctrine. On the 7th of February 1997, the Al-Quds Day march passed through Tehran, the Al-Quds Day, of course, for Jerusalem. After the march was over, a crowd of Muslim youth, without instruction from any authority, entirely of their own initiative, moved across the city to the St. Sarkis Cathedral, the seat of the Assyrian Christian community in Iran, in Tehran. A funeral was being held there for a man named Robert Lazar, an Iranian Assyrian Christian who had been martyred in the final year of the Iran-Iraq war, the 8-year war. The Muslim youth who had marched for Palestine that morning carried his coffin into the cathedral. His brother, who was present, recounted what happened, and the reference, of course, is in the write-up. His brother said, "The funeral was strangely and remarkably massive. It was divine. Inside St. Sarkis Cathedral, Muslim brothers were gently beating their chests, reciting verses proclaiming that Jesus Christ is the owner of the morning today. There was no distinction between us and them." Sit with that image for a moment. Muslim youth, after the Al-Quds Day march, beating their chests inside an Assyrian cathedral for a Christian brother who fell on the same front as Husayn's caravan, proclaiming in their own latmiyat, in their lamentation poetry, that Jesus Christ is the owner of the morning today. This is not hypothetical. This happened in Tehran in our own time. The Muslim youth did not ask permission. They did what their hearts told them to do. And their hearts had been formed by Imam al-Husayn, peace and blessings be upon him, who taught them that the witness is recognized by the act, not by the ancestry. This is what Tabyeen looks like when it is not merely spoken, but it is lived. And now the caravan in our own tongue, the Christian martyrs of the sacred defense. Names, each one. We say them tonight because we have not said them often enough. You have Robert Lazar, the Assyrian Iranian Christian, martyred in the Iran-Iraq war, buried at the St. Sarkis Cathedral. You have Razmik Davidian, an Armenian Iranian Christian. From the early days of the revolution, he joined the Islamic Revolution committees alongside his Muslim brothers, and he was martyred in the Sacred Defense, the 8-year war. His testament, his last will and testament, says the following, and you can find it online, and the references are in the write-up. He writes, "Dear compatriots, I sacrificed my life for the freedom of our homeland. Beloved friends, do not mourn my martyrdom, as from the early days of the revolution, my objective was to sacrifice my life for the homeland's freedom. I am honored to wear the uniform of a soldier so that my name will be remembered alongside the name of patriots." This is the 5th kind of death that we discussed on the third night. It's conscious, it's wakeful, it's knowing. He is part of the chain. You then have Vigen Karapetyan and Zurikh Moradian, Armenian martyrs of the sacred defense. Martyr Imam Sayyid Ali Khamenei, may God rest his pure soul, personally visited their families in the years that followed. These are not the only names. More than 220 religious minority youth, Armenian, Assyrian, Zoroastrian, Jewish, were martyred in the 8 years of the war. More than 1,100 were disabled. Almost 50 were taken prisoner of war. They paid in the same currency, in the same war, on the same front. Many lie buried beside their Muslim brothers in the same cemeteries, such as Gulzar al-Shahada and Behesht al-Zahra, amongst others. And every year, until the year he was taken from us, Martyr Imam Khamenei made it his practice to visit the homes of the Armenian and Assyrian martyrs on the anniversary of the birth of Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him. He brought his condolences and the condolences of the Islamic Republic into Christian homes on a Christian feast day for a Christian son. Stories of these visits are collected in a book that's been published in Tehran, Christ on the Night of Power. He went without convoy. He sat in their living rooms and he wept with them. This is what we mean when we speak of honor without conflation. It's not just a theory. It's buried in cemeteries that we know. It is in the hands of every Muslim youth who on the 7th of February 1997 beat their chest inside an Assyrian cathedral and said, Jesus Christ is the owner of mourning today. They are not in addition to our caravan. They are of it. And one more name before we close. Shireen Abu Akleh, Palestinian Christian journalist. On the 11th of May 2022, she was shot in the head wearing a clearly marked press helmet by a sniper from the occupying army of the Zionist regime while reporting on a raid in the Jenin refugee camp in Palestine. Her funeral was carried by Muslim and Christian Palestinians together. The same regime sent its police to attack the pallbearers and to beat them with clubs. The chain extends. It's still being added to. And the pact that we make tonight. We've traveled a long way tonight, and the pact will not be a single thing, because the audience tonight is not a single thing. There are 3 doors. Take the door that fits where you are. If this material is new to you, find one Christian witness whose name you do not know yet. Read their story. Let them ask of you what they asked of their own community. Would you have stayed in the room or fled it? Then bring the same question back to your own house and ask it of yourself before Imam al-Husayn. If your mind tonight is sharpened by the doctrinal cut, take one of the divergences named tonight, vicarious atonement, inherited guilt. Choose one. Study it carefully, not to argue with anyone, but to know. If the names of the religious minority martyrs from sacred defense stayed in the room, find their names. Robert Lazar, Razmik Davidian, Vigen Karapetyan, Zurikh Moradian, and the more than 220 others. Speak their names this week when you say the martyrs. Whichever door you walk through it. The point of the pact is not which door. The point of the pact is to choose. Imam Husayn, peace and blessings be upon him, does not need our admiration. He needs our movement. Choose one door and walk it. Please give me a salawat and we move on to the road ahead.
صل على محمد وآل محمد.
So tomorrow night, we leave the religious neighbor and we visit the secular one. Franz Fanon and our own Dr. Ali Shariati, may God rest his pure soul, who metaphorically shared cafes in Paris in the early 1960s and who watched each other's revolutions. The 20th century's attempt to produce martyrs without God, the wretched and the witness. Where it sang and where it failed, and what it teaches us about the witness whose source is not the covenant. And the question to carry home, one question. When the witness across the table is not from your tradition, when their words are different from the doctrines and their doctrines diverge from yours, can you honor what is true in them without diminishing what is true in you? Or do you, like the sectarian on either side, find yourself reaching for diminishment in order to feel safe? Imam Husayn, peace and blessings be upon him, never reached for diminishment. The khutbah of Mina is an indictment of corruption. It is not a denigration of Jew or Christian. The proof of Tabyeen is whether the lamp gives off enough light that a stranger can come closer, and distinctly enough that the lamp can still be recognized. And now we look at two who crossed over. We now give the rest of this time to the one who has never left us. The voice that you're about to hear speaks from behind the veils of occultation. And tonight he speaks for two witnesses, not just one. The first is a captain in the wrong army, Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi, peace and blessings be upon him, sent by the governor of Kufa to herd Imam Husayn's caravan to Karbala. 1,000 horsemen behind him, a wage, a tribe, a reputation. And there was another man in another tent on the same night who was offered the governorship of Ray, which is modern-day Tehran, if he would lead the army to the killing. That man stayed where he was, and he chose Ray, and he chose the fire. Hur trembled in the same night, and he chose differently. At dawn, he turned his horse and crossed the open sand and laid his shield upside down in the dust. Imam Husayn looked at him and said, God has accepted your repentance. You are free, as your mother named you free. The second started further away, a Christian, Wahab ibn Abdullah al-Kalbi al-Nasrani, peace and blessings be upon him. He and his mother were Christians of the tribe of Banu Kalb. Imam Husayn, peace and blessings be upon them, passed by their door on the road to Kufa. And the mother, who knew from her own life what a prayer of Imam Ali, peace and blessings upon him, once meant for her, pressed her son, go and support the son of Ali. They crossed out of one tradition into the completion of it. They walked with him to Karbala. On the morning of Ashura, Wahab fought. He killed 7 or 8 before he was captured. His head was struck off and hurled into Imam Husayn's camp like a gift from the executioner. His mother took up his sword to follow him into the field. The Imam restrained her and told her that she and her son would be with the Messenger of God in paradise. This is the Christian witness at Karbala, not a parallel, not an analogy, a figure on the same plane. 2 crossings, one out of an army into its opposite, one out of a tradition into its completion. They began at different starting points. They fell at the same destination. And the cross was made not at the time of dying, but at the moment of living. The Imam, may our souls be his ransom, may God hasten his return, comes to us tonight from behind the veil for both of them. Let us listen. So let us now have a short supplication. Peace be upon Abel, the first witness. Peace be upon every witness and every tongue who refused to bow. Peace be upon Hur, who turned. Peace be upon Wahab, who crossed. Peace be upon Wahab's mother, who took up the sword when his head came back to camp and was promised by our Imam she would walk with the Prophet of God in paradise. Peace be upon Husayn, the master of every chain. Peace be upon the Imam of our age, who remembers. Peace be upon Martyr Khamenei in our first Muharram without him. Peace be upon you all, upon your houses, and upon the candle that was lit tonight, and that will not be put out. O God, you who have no beginning and no end, you who created the heavens and the earth and what lies between them, we turn to you tonight at the door of this Muharram, and we have no Lord but you, and no refuge but your door, and no words worthy of you except the ones you yourself have taught us. All praise belongs to you, the praise of those who know you and the praise of those who are still learning to know you. You are the one who sent the prophets, raised the witnesses, and preserved the chain from the first morning of creation until this hour. The flame is yours, the oil is yours, the candle that burnt to light each one of these rooms was yours from the beginning, and the witnesses who lit it were yours. O God, we send our condolences and our congratulations tonight to your beloved, to our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, his family and righteous companions, on the days of this month. Condolences because his grandson, the master of the youth of paradise, will be slain on a plain in Iraq. And congratulations because the witness he gave has not ended. It will burn until the day you raise him and seat him beside you, and the whole of creation sees what the witnesses always knew. O God, we send our peace tonight to your servant Jesus, the son of Mary. Peace and blessings be upon him, and may you, O our beloved Lord, hasten his return. The great prophet of your book, the one who, in our own tradition, did not die on the cross, but was raised by you into your protection. We send peace upon him as your messenger, neither more nor less than that, as the Quran itself instructs us. And we send peace with him upon his blessed mother, Saint Mary. Peace and blessings be upon her, as-Siddiqa, the truthful. O God, peace be upon those in the tradition of Jesus, peace and blessings be upon him, refused to bow when bowing was offered. O God, we send our peace tonight to Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi, the captain who turned. We ask you for every Hur in this room, every Hur in this age who has been in the wrong camp and has not yet turned, open the door tomorrow morning before the killing of the day begins, and let them turn their horses, let them cross the sand, and let our grandfather, Imam al-Husayn, peace and blessings be upon him, give them back the name their mothers gave them. O God, we send our peace tonight to Wahab ibn Abdullah al-Kalbi al-Nasrani, peace and blessings be upon him, the Christian who saw the truth and the justice of the grandson of your messenger, and entered your religion at his hands, and to his mother, peace and blessings be upon her, who pressed him towards the witness on the road, and who, after his head had been hurled into the camp, took up his sword and meant to go. We thank you for letting Wahab's blood mingle on that plain with the blood of Imam al-Husayn, the Christian and the descendant of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon them all, in the same earth. O God, we send our peace to the Master of the age, the Imam of our age, the proof of your existence upon the earth, the hidden one, the awaited one, the son of Hassan al-Askari, peace and blessings be upon them both. And may you, O our Lord, our sustainer, hasten his return. We know he watches. We know he waits. We ask you to hasten his return. We ask you to make us worthy of it. And until that day, keep us among those who carry the candle he has entrusted to us, and who do not ever set it down. O God, we mark tonight with grief and the obligation it places upon us that this is the first Muharram since the martyrdom of Imam Khamenei. May peace and blessings be upon him. The man who taught us everything and taught us Tabyeen. The man who visited Christian families on the anniversary of the birth of Jesus, year after year until the year that we lost him. We ask you gather him with the prophets and the witnesses and the chain that runs from Abel through Imam al-Husayn and beyond, and to seat us in the company of those who do not turn back. O God, we send our peace tonight to Imam al-Husayn, peace and blessings be upon him, the master of witnesses, the heir of Adam, the heir of Abraham, the heir of Moses, the heir of Jesus, the heir of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon them all, the lamp in whom every candle finds its complete form. Peace be upon you, O Abu Abdullah. Tonight we honored the candles. Tomorrow night we will honor the candles that tried and failed for want of the right oil. And the night after we will turn our faces back to your face. We are coming to you. Hold the door open. O God, we have nowhere to go but to you, and no one to ask but you, and no words that are enough except the words that you have placed on the tongues of your friends. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We belong to God, and to him we will return. And we repeat your promise, an eternal promise for justice and a warning for the wrongdoers. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. The wrongdoers will soon know at what goal they will end up. And we add from the depth of everything that we have learned tonight, Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil. God is sufficient for us, and he is the best of guardians. Amen, O Lord, sustainer of the universes. Amen, O most merciful of the merciful. وآخر دعواني أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.